They are terrific with that new camera and Dave's great editing there. It's absolutely terrific. Dave is considering giving up his primary career as a doctor and becoming a video editor. There's a lot more money in video editing than there is in doctoring.
Pornos to go.
Derek, I gotta make a quick announcement. I forgot to put out the album.
Do it all.
Consider it dessert. Play the emoji again, we gotta start.
We have members to thank. Steve brought in some personal care products. There's a huge bag of personal care products. I don't even know who brought this in. Do we know? Thank you. All right. We have eyeglasses. Okay, there's another one here. So 2 people have brought in eyeglasses. And we have a cell phone. Somebody brought in a cell phone. Thank you. We have people who work very hard preparing our breakfast this morning. And we'd like to have them stand up so we can say thank you to those people. Thank you all very much. And now you smell locks all over yourself. There's some soap right here that you will wash your hands with. A few emails have gone around to volunteer for Sukkah building right here at the JCC, and 8 people did show up. We thank them very much. Can you people stand? Perloff, Lynn, Greenberg, Nellis, Knopf, Weisenstein, Larry Needleson, was he there?
Yep.
Dave Singer. Thank you, guys. And now there is a Take Down the Sukkah event. 1010 Williams, New York, October 10th, from 1 to 3 p.m. So we need volunteers for that. Okay. I got 5 names on that. All right, let me pass this around. We're looking for volunteers to do that. The reason this is important is that we are here as guests who made an agreement with the JCC, and one of our feedbacks is that we help them do things, right, in the community. So what we have done for the last 20 years is give back to the community by giving them our time and our labor. And this is an example. So if you'd like to volunteer, please do. We have an event to ask you about. What you do with it? Ed, what you do with it?
No, stepping on top.
Oh. There is a play at the American Jewish History Museum called Stoop on Orchard Street, the musical. If we'd like to know if there's enough interest for us to organize a group event to go see this play about the Lower East Side of New York, the musical. Is there any interest in it?
Yes. When is it, Terry?
It's anywhere between October and December. So we'll have to pick a date. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great.
Okay, let's collect our money today.
We can invite your Spice to it. Spice, that's plural spouse. All right, so we're going to organize it. Randy sent out an email and asked you to respond. And when Randy gets here, he'll know about all these things. We still have sign-up sheets. We started coming here last December. We still have some sign-up sheets if anybody wants to join the JCC at a discounted rate. You get the senior rate and a discount off of the senior rate, all right, if you join the JCC. And where it helps is upcoming arts, books, and culture festival. You get discount prices in the arts, books, and culture festival, and that's one of many things that we would get discounts on. As a matter of fact, as far as the arts, books, and culture festival is concerned, that's coming up soon. Edwin, you see how old I am? Yeah. You know who Edwin is?
Yes, you're a comedian. Bald-headed guy.
If you were really, it would be
And Dave's son,
No, that was the son.
His son was his son.
Dave is old.
Actually, my name is Keenan.
Keenan Wynn. That was the son.
That was the site, Ricky. Basically, the GCC's come up with this new flyer about the benefits for being on this program. And you do get discounts on the Arts, Books, and Cultural Festival, the Film Festival, Gary and I on the committee over there. Also, lifelong learning. They come up with programs every 3 months. I just went to a fantastic movie. Now, basically, these events are daytime, so it really is only beneficial for people who've retired. But they are coming up with a program this year in an evening to see if there's an interest in that activity. Each of your tables, by the way, has a copy of this adult membership thing, and they've got them all over the place, but if you're interested, take a look at that. Each of your tables, you have the lifelong learning, each of the classes being given, they're very reasonably priced, and most of them are very good. I mean, I don't go to them all, but the ones I go to, I really enjoy. And again, it's a discount if you go to that. As far as the Arts, Books, and Cultural Festival, this, in my opinion, is the best program we've had in years. Just unbelievable talent. Now, I've talked to a lot of people are going to go to Capitol Steps. We have Stuart Eisenstadt, who's an ambassador under Carter. He was here before, he gave a fantastic presentation. We got Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, speaking about her experiences. We've got Patty Morton, who was a television announcer, who was married to Pete Jennings, and Richard Holbrook, who was an ambassador. I mean, these are fantastic people. One of the things that we have in here, in this program, is that if we have a group of 10 people or more, you get a 10% discount on that particular event. I took a look at it, and I mean, I have no idea what you people are interested in. You may be interested in more than one thing. But the one thing that is particularly for men is we have Len Berman, the sports announcer. We also have, following him, a guy that writes for Jon Stewart. What I'm going to ask Randy to do is to send out a flyer to everybody. If we get 10 or more, you can get 20, 30, whatever, but it has to be at least 10, we can then book tickets at a 10% discount. So hopefully, when you get this email, you look at it and you respond. If you find that there are other things here and you tell us you want to go, maybe there's another event that we can get 10 or more people. But as long as we get 10 or more people for any individual event, there's a 10% discount. So be on the lookout that this will be coming to you very shortly.
Excellent, thank you.
Oh, one other thing. If any of you has a business, and Richie has already indicated he would put up this flyer, that's willing to put up a flyer in your business where people can come by and see it, let me know, and I'll give you one of these things so that you can post them. Okay, thank you.
Okay. A bit of democracy in action. The South Jersey Men's Club Board had a meeting before the summer and voted to create a new position within our board of of executive vice president for the purpose of creating the concept of a president-elect, so that we have somebody in the wings ready to step in when the current president wants to step down. I am 3.5 years into my tenure, and I do believe in term limits. Okay, and having it's a 2-year position, so I am now completing my 2nd term, and just like the President of the United States, 2 terms is about all that we should sustain. So, so we are looking to create this new position in order to develop a succession plan. So your board voted for it, and we need the membership to vote for this concept. So we'd like to get a voice vote from, it could be a hand vote, from all the members who are here. So do I have somebody to propose that we create this new position of executive vice president?
I propose.
Thank you.
Second.
And you seconded, Mike. All right, all those in favor of creating this new position, please indicate by raising your hand. All those opposed? Well, clearly, it's unanimous. Thank you all very much. It's hereby passed. Dave, it's passed. Okay. On to other items. On your tables is a brochure about the Dead Sea Scrolls. All right, you can put it up here. You better hurry. It's only good for another 2 weeks, but it's phenomenally well worth visiting. So take a look at that. Is there anything else on upcoming events that anybody wants to highlight?
Yeah, the announcement. You want me to tell you at our meeting?
No, not yet. Ed.
Just a quick announcement. You remember a couple of months ago, we had a speaker from the Yellow Ribbon Club. We had 2 speakers, one from the organization and the other who was a member of the military that came back. We had agreed that we would start supporting the Yellow Ribbon Club with some of our contributions. The founder of the Yellow Ribbon Club, who copyrighted the concept of the Yellow Ribbon Club, pulled out. She closed that program. The speaker that we had, David Silver, has decided to take it over, but he cannot take it over under the name of the Yellow Ribbon Club, so they're creating Operation Yellow Ribbon Club. So once that's starting to get going again, I'll let you know, so that if we want to make any contributions from the South Jersey Men's Club, it'll be running at that point when I tell you. Just secondly, Jerry mentioned that it's good for us to do things for the Federation so that it encourages them to let us stay here as an organization. As a consequence, Vicki Zell from the Federation approached me and asked me if I would be willing to represent the South Jersey Men's Club in what they call the 2013 Campaign Cabinet, and it's basically part of a board that works on the Super Sunday campaign. And periodically, I might be asking you for ideas about your experiences and your suggestions on dealing with the program, because they're looking for new ideas and new blood. So since I'm representing you, I'm hopeful that you'll give me some feedback as I ask for it. But since I'm representing the men's club, I'm hopeful that that will make an impact on the Federation. Thank you.
Thank you. David, you want to talk about future programs? Okay, we'll do that at the end, but why don't you come up now and introduce our guest speaker, who has been sitting here eagerly waiting his opportunity.
To be succinct, Hank Maurer is a longtime member of the community, past president of the JCRC, member of my synagogue, Temple Emmanuel, who I see at shul all the time. and he's here to talk about the Jewish-Catholic-Muslim dialogue, challenges, and accomplishments. I welcome Hank Maurer. Thank you.
Thank you, David. David asked me if I have a bio to present, and I said, well, I didn't bring it with me. And he said the basics, which are, for purposes of this group, a past president of the JCRC and currently a member of its executive committee. I also serve as co-president of the Catholic Jewish Commission, which is one of the basic interfaith efforts of the JCRC. In most presentations, the conventional way is to start with the facts and then proceed from there to analysis or a little more exploration. In journalism, start with who, what, when, where. I'm a little unconventional, or at least today I'm going to be unconventional, and perhaps for this audience I'll be a little unconventional. And I'm going to start with why. Why does JCRC involve itself in this kind of interfaith effort? Why do some people, including myself, feel it's important and useful and challenging to engage in that effort? As an illustration of that, I'm going to read you a brief letter to the editor, which was printed in the New York Times a couple weeks ago. To the editor, I am a Muslim American and I am outraged. As an American, I am angry and heartbroken that innocent compatriots were brutally murdered and United States diplomatic missions in Benghazi and Cairo were attacked. As a Muslim, I am shamed by the heinous acts of those who claim to share my religious beliefs. The Libyan and Egyptian people owe the United States a debt of gratitude for helping to free them from the yoke of tyrannical dictators. How soon they forget. This is not the way good Muslims or any good human beings conduct themselves. In their barbaric and violent spree of hate, the Libyan and Egyptian people who participate in these actions have not defended the honor of the Prophet Muhammad. Instead, they have besmirched his legacy. That letter was sent to the New York Times by Farhat Viviji, who is one of the founding members of our Jewish-Catholic Muslim dialogue group. And she is just one of the number of people who we have found to have the ability to have a constructive dialogue with because of the type of position she advances. Well, it's not just a position she advances, it's something that she feels in her heart and drives her work. Now let me go back to a little bit of the who, what, when, and so forth. The dialogue group actually grows out of the earlier interfaith work that the JCRC did, mainly with the Catholic community. It started in the 1980s. There was Jewish participation in the 50th anniversary of the Camden Diocese. There was one of the first interfaith trips to Israel from this community of Catholics and Jews. And in the 1990s, there was the creation of what was called the Catholic Jewish Institute, which continues to this day, which was an educational effort where you had presentations by Jewish and Catholic speakers on particular topics. And from that educational effort, in 2001, there was actually a formal agreement between the Catholic Diocese of Camden, which, by the way, it's not just the city of Camden or county of Camden, it's basically the entire South Jersey area, encompassing about 500,000 Catholics. An agreement between the Camden Diocese and the Jewish Federation, which set up a formal structure called the Catholic Jewish Commission. After 9/11, there was some interest, both in terms of the Jewish community in JCRC and some Muslims, about having some contact, trying to overcome obviously what was tremendous impact upon relations with Muslims in this country. And some of those initial efforts, most of which were undertaken by the former executive director of JCRC, Alan Ressler, were not successful. He encountered some Muslims who first indicated they were interested in having some of these contacts, but when he explored it further with them, he found an existing and hostility still to Israel, and basically lack of condemnation of terror. So these were individuals really we could not work with. There were other Muslims we came into contact with basically around the effort to build a mosque in Voorhees, which now stands today on Hatfield Berlin Road. At the time it was first proposed, there were anonymous flyers circulated in the community trying to link this mosque to terrorism. The leaders of that effort to build the mosque did reach out to community leaders, including Jewish community leaders, and from that there was a meeting hosted by former Mayor Platt and Cherry Hill. There grew out of that the beginnings of this Jewish Catholic Muslim dialogue group. My own involvement began, this was around 2003, my own involvement began around 2 years later when I became JCRC president. There was another mosque that was proposed to be built in Cherry Hill, which exists today. And we were asked and did speak before the planning board of Cherry Hill in favor of that plan. That did not encounter quite the same level of hostility that had existed with the Voorhees Mosque, but there was some concern. But out of that effort, we had again increasing interest in the dialogue group. We created a mission statement, and normally I wouldn't read it, but it is brief, and it does essentially explain what we were about. Recognizing that we are people of the book, and more fundamentally endowed with life and humanity, by the one, the divine, the creator of all that is created. We will work together to reinforce those areas that we share in common. Further, we will work together to understand each other in areas that we differ. We will provide zero tolerance for bigotry, hate, and injustice within and without our communities. Finally, we will work together to ensure that there is equal opportunity for all to enjoy the inherent rights to peace, security, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. The dialogue group that grew out of that has a core of, I would say, perhaps 25 people. Typically, meetings have maybe 20, 25 people at most. We have addressed in the past year some topical issues. We had presentations in 3 separate meetings of the 3, let's say, legal frameworks of each of the religions, of halakha, canon law, and Sharia. Next month, our meeting is going to be devoted to looking at, let's call it, problem passages in both the Quran and the Bible, passages that promote violence, and the discussion of that. This is something we've been building up to for a while. It's obviously a difficult area, but based on trust and the communications, specifically the dialogue that we have had over the years, it's felt that this is something that we can discuss. But we don't just talk among ourselves. We have had for the past several years at least one meeting open to the community. The title is generally called Breaking Bread Together, and it addresses a specific topic. We have had between 100 and 150, maybe more people at some of these events. We've also issued statements on various topics. Some of those have been noted by the general press, others only appear in the Voice or in the Catholic Star Herald. And we hope to go from there as a dialogue group. It's not expected that we're going to have a large membership. In fact, it can't work with that many people. But we are hoping, of course, in community events to have greater participation and outreach. There are significant challenges in what we're doing. Now, I haven't even talked about the Catholics who are a significant part of this group. It is a tri-faith group of Jews, Catholics, and Muslims. But the Catholics, to briefly address in a minute, 50 years of history, at least since the Second Vatican Council of the 1960s, the official position of the Catholic Church has been very different toward Judaism and the Jewish people. And this is a position which is shared to an extent, it all depends upon the individuals, by both clergy and lay people within the Catholic community. The bishops that we have had in Camden have been some more than others. Obviously, the both clergy and lay people who are involved are people who want to be involved in this effort. For the Muslims, it's there are a number of difficulties. In a group such as this, or the Jewish Federation, or the JCRC, or its national group, the Jewish Council for Public Affairs. It's no big thing to have people who are Reformed, Conservative, Orthodox, Reconstructionists, and people involved in various sub-streams of those groups sitting together in a group and making policy and making plans. Now that's not the norm for Muslims. We have in our group Sunni, we have Shia, we have another group that's called Ahmadiyya, and actually some in the Sunni and Shia world do not even consider the Ahmadiyya to be Muslim, and the Sunni and Shia do have significant differences. They also come from generally different countries or or ethnic backgrounds. Nevertheless, unlike the violent clashes that we do see in Asia, the Middle East, between these different Muslim groups, obviously these are people who do not engage in not only violent conflict, but even the type of verbal conflict that would destroy this kind of group. Nevertheless, they're not where, let's say, the Jewish community is in terms of its maturity in gathering, together. It's also been pointed out, and I'm quoting here from an article by a doctoral candidate at Columbia University named Harun Mago, who summed this up pretty succinctly. He said, Islam never developed any centralized or institutional authority to arbiter disputes, because no person could have Muhammad's moral authority. This might also suggest why disagreements between Muslims can be so bitter. Muslims disagree about the same person and interpretations of the same text, and there is no institutional means to permanently settle disputes. Of course, you could say the same for the Jewish community. There's no central authority to arbiter disputes, but somehow over the years, over the decades, we have figured out how to sit together and cooperate, with some exceptions that we have seen both here and particularly in Israel. But it also does lead to questions about, which Muslims we can relate to and how we can relate to. And the distinction that's sometimes made in the general press between moderate Muslims and radical Muslims is not something that you really hear from the Muslims that we deal with. The Muslims that we deal with, they do not consider themselves to be, what shall I use the term, moderate, reformed. That's really not part of their vocabulary. The distinction that exists, and again I'm quoting from this article by Harun Magal, really sums it up. He said, if we admit to the diversity of opinions in Islam, we might come to a meaningful and relevant political distinction between Muslims. those who accept the legitimacy of difference and those who deny it. So the Muslims that we work with basically agree to disagree. They have come to the recognition that there are differences among them, very significant differences among them, but that they are willing to work together. Moreover, they recognize that there are Jews and Catholics and mainstream Protestants and evangelical Protestants and Buddhists and Sikhs and so many others in this country as well as elsewhere. And when it says in our mission statement about having zero tolerance for intolerance, they really believe it. This is how they live their lives. This is how they conduct themselves in their dealings with us and with other groups. And there are more of them out there. So that's really the challenge, or one of the challenges, to continue to work within the group that we have, to have outreach to those who at least can be persuaded to think a little bit outside of the box that they are in, and frankly, to reach out to groups such as this. And looking around the room, I know many of you, and I know there are many skeptics about what I have just said. But that's part of the challenge. That's what makes it interesting for me. And at this point, I would welcome your questions.
How many members are in the group?
The dialogue group itself, in terms of members, is relatively small. I would say our membership group is no more than 30 people.
30.
Yeah. Yes.
I heard you mention just Catholicism. What happened to the rest of Christianity? Why are they involved?
It's a good question. We have considered over the years involving the other Christian groups. We do have a relationship, by the way, with an evangelical Christian group called Friends of Israel, which is headquartered in Deptford. It is a national group. They are very, very strong and sincere advocates of Israel. We have had joint trips with them to Israel. They have co-sponsored events. It is a one-issue relationship, however, because they are on many of the, let's call it social issues that some of us are involved in. They have, distinctly different views. So it is limited to that. There have been efforts over the years to have some outreach to some of the mainstream, so to speak, or mainline, that's the term that is used, the Protestant groups, the Methodists, Presbyterians, and we'll probably do some more of that. I'm not sure that it's fruitful to include them in that group. And the problem there is the Catholics. Or it's actually on both sides. Because while there are organizations such as the Ontario Religious Leaders Coalition, which encompasses Catholics and Protestants, there are limits on organizationally on their working together. But it is something that we are exploring this year.
We talked for weeks about this. But one of the things that you said, and everybody should understand this about institutional Islam, is Muslims will tell you that there's no institutionalization. However, you have Al-Azhar, which is the main authority on Sunni Islam in Egypt. Nothing happens in the Sunni world without Al-Azhar giving its imprint on it and saying it's good. That is now Morsi, who's the president of Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood, that runs it and will run Al-Azhar. In the Shiite world, you have Iran, which is the head of the Shiite world. They make their pronouncements, and they are run by the Ulema, which is a whole holy group that makes rules and regulations, period. And you also have the Prince Aziz College in Saudi Arabia, etc. So there is an institutionalization and a formal thought process there. There also is the International Fiqh Society, the Islamic Society in North America. Most of the mosques are financed by those people. So within Islam itself, there are a lot of issues that I don't know if you cover or not, but do you have real academic discussions about the systemic, real Islam? There is no Islam light. And in my experience, which is pretty vast, my conclusion is that Islam is the antithesis of Judeo-Christianity. The antithesis. Muslims will have us believe that they are children of Abraham. Well, in Islam, Abraham was a Muslim, born a Muslim. Jesus was a Muslim. Moses was a Muslim. Everybody was a Muslim. That was the first religion and the only true religion. And about intolerance, the most intolerant religion in the world. Islam is a political system, a totalitarian political system parading as a religion. And it is the most intolerant group of people ever on the face of the earth. Have you ever heard of a Christian Zionist? Have you ever heard of a Muslim Zionist? Anybody? Never. So when you look at what's going on in the world today, intolerance is just, and we can go on for hours about this, but Muslims are not tolerant. There is zero tolerance. It would be very interesting to listen to and to be involved in some of the academic discussions that you have.
Well, briefly to comment on it. There's no doubt, there's no denying that there are Muslim institutions, religious institutions, which promote those aspects of Islam which are absolutely antithetical to the values that we hold dear in this country, as well as Israel. I don't pretend to have any significant knowledge of Islam. Lance, you're welcome to quote.
I do. I'm not going to quote anything. I just want you guys, listen, it's important for us to know the truth. This is a Sharia law book. See it? This is what Sharia law is. This is real. It's not a game. There's 6 schools. Iran's under the Jafari school. The others are under other schools. But this is Sharia. This is the world-renowned source. And it's approved by many people. If you want to see it and copy it and read it, you can read it. Bible. Wait a minute. One other thing is the Quran, guys.
Lance, I was giving my response. I spoke for a few minutes. With regard to Shia, I mentioned there are Shia within our group. They are associated with this mosque, they call it a masjid, in Cherry Hill, it's near the industrial park. It's a small group, but actually, worldwide, they are part of a group of approximately 2 million, which, although Shia is a particular group which is, unlike other Muslim group, has a very strict hierarchy. They have a leader who he's still alive now, about 100 years old. Nevertheless, they don't do anything without this leader approving it. And their participation in our group, therefore, has the explicit support of this particular leader.
Is that the Amadeus?
No,
Not the Amadeus?
I can't even pronounce the name. I don't remember the name. But no, it's whatever the name of the group is.
But one of their leaders
It's
came here.
it's centered in.
One of their leaders was in the country, and when they had the 60th anniversary of Israel's statehood, he was in this room, and he came with an entourage to present a certificate of, congratulating Israel.
Yes, that's
Are you talking
right.
about the Druze?
No, they're not the Druze. It's centered in India.
Yeah.
So you know the group that I'm referring to. And I'll just say, you can take a position that the Muslims of the world, 1.4 billion, constitute a uniform bloc. There may be 6 million, I believe, in the United States. I don't know the exact census figures, and say that they, constitute a uniform bloc that of intolerance and and hostility. And if you choose to believe that, that is your right to believe.
Do you get into
but
dialogue?
it is not. It does not reflect the reality, at least that I and other members of this group and other dialogue groups across the country have experienced, nor does it give us a program for moving
The
forward.
reality is what they write,
That's
what
what
they believe.
And even though the Protestant groups are not involved with the dialogue, do I recall properly that when there was one group that was boycotting companies doing business with Israel, that your group did something to change their movement, or am I wrong about that?
No, you are correct. There have been a couple efforts recently, both with the National Methodists as well as the Presbyterians, to advance policies supporting boycott and divestment actions involving Israel. And most recently, the Presbyterians in their National Assembly defeated, very narrowly defeated, but nevertheless defeated an effort to have complete divestment of their investments from companies that do business with Israel. There were efforts around the country to have contact with delegates to that National Assembly. And in fact, personally, it was interesting because when a list went around of the delegates, including they're divided between clergy and the lay leaders, who they call elders. I looked at one of the elders' names, and this was somebody that I knew from work for over 20 years. I arranged to meet him for lunch. We had a good discussion. It turns out, even before he met me for lunch, that he was going to vote, against the divestment group. But that's not just that, advertise myself. This is efforts done on a larger scale. And what we have found around the country is those kinds of person-to-person contacts are critical in moving the direction of these groups. Generally, what happens, whether it's the Methodists or the Presbyterians, you have a small group, but they are very dedicated to this one issue. of supporting the Palestinians, so-called Palestinians, and opposing Israel. And they put it in the framework of supporting social justice and oppression and so forth. And although that may not be the sentiment of many others in that group, the smaller group, if they're so dedicated to that, can sometimes succeed because of the lack of a countervailing effort. Yes, Dave?
It's interesting that these Christian groups would go after Israel when in many countries, in the Arab countries, first of all, Christians are persecuted. I just saw something about the Copts had to leave a certain area near Israel because Morsian's people were going to bomb them out. You can't have churches in Saudi Arabia and many other countries. The tremendously poor treatment of Christians in many, many Muslim countries, you don't hear very much about that. And why the Christians would not be concerned about their own brethren being so mistreated, and they're worried about Israel, is just unbelievable. And maybe somebody's not giving them the right message.
If it could be put in terms of logic, you know, and facts and all that you present, you know, it's absolutely true. And but you know, this gets into the whole role of the whole Arab-Israeli conflict. So much of it is based on not facts, but as the term goes, narrative. People fit what happens into a certain framework. And the framework is, well, there are the oppressors, the colonialists, the imperialists, and so forth. And then on the other side, there are those who are the oppressed, and the poor people, and the refugees, and so forth. And where people fit things within that framework and place Israel, you know, within that framework on that oppressors and imperialist side, that is how they come to expressing and advancing those kinds of positions.
I was watching CNN this week. Pierce Morgan was a Manchon, and they asked him many questions about state settlement, about Israel. He would not answer any questions that Israel even existed. His final thing was that he can see in the future a state ruled by Arab Muslim countries, and Israel would not be around. Now, how can we support something like that?
Who supporting it?
I didn't say that. I said, but we're supporting these other countries in the Arab world by giving them money, all kinds of things. And I'm not saying the majority of people are against Israel, but the ones that are the ones that are causing all the problems. And there's no way of stopping them, I don't think, unless you leave them go on their own and destroy themselves.
It's systemic Islam.
Right.
It's systemic Islam that's the problem.
The difference between what he heard that Ahmadinejad actually had the courage to say on live television, and what is written in foundation documents of every, I say every without exception, mainstream organization throughout the Middle East about the ultimate goal is the destruction of the Jewish state, is that he said it out loud. There is no
He didn't say it out loud, but he said it in his own way. The
All right.
Jewish state would not
And
be
he didn't
around.
have the guts to say it.
Right.
But every organization you hear of, particularly the Muslim Brotherhood and the Gaza branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, the Islamic Resistance Movement, which is also called Hamas, that our government here in the United States is trying to sanitize many of these organizations. And what we've seen in the last few years is what in effect is United States policy helping to place the Muslim Brotherhood in charge of other countries throughout the Middle East.
They're in it.
without the knowledge of what they stand for. And I don't mean what my interpretation is, I mean, read their foundation documents and you'll know what they stand for, what their goals
How
are.
about if they do know what they stand for, Michael, and they're doing it anyway?
You have to hope they don't.
We can talk about that.
Yes.
I've been at least a little bit encouraged that there was an op-ed piece or a letter to the editor in the Times, all right, voicing opposition to the radical terrorist attacks that occurred on our embassies.
Right.
And that there are few members of your 30 members, can I say 10 are from the Muslim side?
Yeah, yeah.
That at least that there are few people around, though it sounds extremely tiny. There's a few people around who are willing to stand up and say that we need to work with the Judeo-Christian rest of the world. So I'm encouraged about that, and I encourage your group to find more opportunities for success. But my perception is like theirs, that it's fruitless because they learn from their documents and from their Quran to hate
The other. The other.
That's what
Jews and Christians. And Israel and Jews are an easier fruit on the tree to pick off first, but that their ultimate goal is everybody who is not Islamic.
That's true. That's fact.
Okay,
Well,
and
you
so
get the
I'm
Tuesday
encouraged. So I am encouraged. I am encouraged. All right. I hope you can expand your group, particularly with more Muslims, so that we can find more people with whom to have a dialogue, and hopefully that dialogue moderates their positions.
Let me just mention, I mean, the size of the group is necessarily small because it engages in dialogue. And to have that dialogue, you cannot, by organizational dynamics, have a larger group. Nevertheless, just locally, there are at least 3 Muslim congregations, so to speak. The one located in Voorhees, the one in Cherry Hill, and the Ahmadiyya group in Willingboro, which...
Clementon has a group in Bangladesh.
Oh, okay. But those are the groups that, that have been involved, and that in, larger settings, we have been, involved with either larger community groups, so forth. And what we have found in our national meetings is that there are similar groups and individuals around the country. So it exists.
Yeah, that
Yes.
was my question. What's going on? I mean, you see a small picture here of some sense of tolerance among the Muslims that you deal with in the organization. Are you seeing that in other metropolitan areas? I guess there are other JCRCs throughout the country. I don't know.
Right.
I guess wherever there is.
And they do not necessarily have the same kind of format that we have. They sometimes have a more inclusive, like interfaith council, as was mentioned, sometimes involving, the mainstream Protestants and/or evangelical Protestants, and perhaps we're going to evolve in that distinction, but it does exist out there.
Hank, do you get into dawah discussions? Did you ever ask the Muslims, why do we in America believe that Islam will show a different face in America, whereas for 1,400 years it has shown what it is throughout the world, and you can see it happening from the time of Thomas Jefferson and the Barbary Pirates, when we first got involved as a country, up till now what's going on in the Middle East. Do you ever ask Muslims why they believe that Islam will be different in the United States than it is overseas? Do you get into dawah? You know what dawah is, right? You get into dawah discussions with them?
No, I don't know what dawah is.
Dawah is the Muslim outreach to us, to tell us what they want us to hear about what they want us to hear.
Well, Lance, the group that we have, and I'll close with this. There are different kinds of groups that get together. We operate according to a document called the Dialogue Decalogue, which is a set of principles that was developed by a religion professor, Dr. Leonard Swidler from Temple University, about 28 years ago. It is basically a set of principles of how you conduct an interfaith dialogue group. It is based on certain principles of mutual respect and recognizing certain boundaries of the way you discuss certain items. These dialogue groups are not for everyone. We are very selective in terms of who we invite to participate, and that's from all three faith groups.
I was asked to leave a meeting, by the way. Can you imagine that I asked some questions and no one could answer them, and I was never invited to another meeting? Because I said, why is Islam going to be different here? Or what is dawah? He doesn't even know what dawah is, which is a fundamental precept. I know. I'd love to have a debate with you anytime in front of
I think there's one last question from Barney.
You said it was going to have a conference dealing with biblical texts, dealing with violence, which obviously takes some great knowledge of Torah. Who will be representing us? Who will represent the Jewish side? Who will come in knowledgeable about Jewish?
I do expect Rabbi Aaron to be there, but there will be other Jews, but it won't be just, there will be participation, from all those who are members.
Hank, I'm very glad you're doing this. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best.
Okay, thanks.
We do have a certificate of appreciation for you.
Very nice.
All right, which comes with a 1-year membership to our organization.
Okay.
And we hope you'll come back over the next year and hear other speakers talk about issues of importance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good job.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
One more job. You have a job, Hank.
You gotta close your head, there's 2 colors. The winning share is $57. I won't even get the color. No, don't look at the colors. I won't even get the colors. Oh, you got the right color.
The winning number is
Last 3 days.
201-224.
That's wrong.
You got one number.
I got one number.
All right.
Thank you, Hank. We're not done yet. We're not done yet. I do have a few more T-shirts with the South Jersey Men's Club logo on them for sale. $20 cheap. Okay? So if you're interested, please see me before the end of the meeting. Richard?
Yeah, just want to, Jerry Feldman, you want to get up for the
I was going to do
latest
that.
member?
Jerry Feldman is a new member. Welcome very much. You want to tell us something about yourself in 30 words or less?
30 words or less.
25 now.
I was invited here by Steve Warski, who I've known since high school.
won't
I'm
hold that
president of Cherry Hill for 40 years. Before I retired, I was a financial systems analyst with a French chemical company.
Which company?
Elfall?
It was called, when I joined them, they were called Elf Adochem. When I left the company, they were under the name of Adolfina Chemicals. They were a Belgian and French-owned company. What else? I have 2 adult children. Unfortunately, I became widowed about 10 months ago. What else can I tell you?
Hobbies?
Hobbies? All right, I'm into tennis. I like the theater. I'm a Mason. And now I'm on the South Jersey Mets.
Yeah, you've now reached the pinnacle. Yes, Mr. Bob.
Just one thing, Ed Stein. Stand up. I'd like to thank Ed publicly. We had our outing at the Morris River.
Maurice River Cruise.
Yeah,
Yes,
I went to Morris River last year.
Morris, okay.
Last week. And how many people were involved?
I think there were 14 on the first cruise and 8 of us on the second cruise.
And it was a great time.
It was.
It really was, and I want to thank Ed. It was a great job done.
And thank you.
No middle.
Dave is.
Here he is.
Back here.
Which Dave?
There it
Too
is.
many Daves.
Tell us about next month's meeting.
It's in essence a 2-part meeting. October and January is being, for all intents and purposes, hosted by the JCC Federation. I don't know who. A Holocaust survivor is going to come next month in October to give us a talk, and in January we're going to have a tour and related activities around the Holocaust Museum here at the JCC.
Very nice.
December?
January.
Okay.
What about December?
Richard.
Just real quick, if I need a couple guys to help me bring stuff down, because I couldn't get the big car tonight, so.
Okay.
Now, if you're available.
All right.
Thank you.
Those people who are signed who have volunteered to handle these items here, telephones is Larry, you handle telephones?
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to take the telephones here, and you donate it to who?
Women's, it goes to women that,
Women's Shelter?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Personal products. David.
It's been the Camden County Boys and Girls Club, but I'm going to be looking to change that.
Yellow
now.
Ribbon.
You have some ideas? Let me know.
The Operation Yellow Ribbon Club. And eyeglasses. Richard.
We give it to the Lions Club, Lions International.
Okay. Okay.
I'd like to bring up the possibility of one more.
Yes.
Yes, I recently came across an organization that also does things for vets, and they specifically collect CDs, not certificates of deposit, but movies and things like that. Is there any interest in donating your old movies and CDs? Raise your hand if there's a.
How about videotape?
Probably not. No.
How about CDs of our old speakers?
How about our old speaker? Thank you.
I thank you all for coming.
We'll have an investment club meeting.
Sorry?
Investment club meeting following the meeting.
You have an investment club meeting following. I'd also like to have a very quick meeting with the board right after this meeting.
How about before the investment?
Okay, no, mine will take 1 minute. And if there's nobody else, thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed it, hope you ate well, and we'll see you next month. Okay?